Taanse anin jagogin, John Langen, agayase mohnetasiga asun. Eguamina, wapa stem nehiao netasiga asun. Niaotse Kisakus First Nation, Eguamina, Masquako Gichiwao. Hello, my English name is John Langen, and my native name is Whitehorse. And I also come from the Bear Clan from Kisakus First Nation. I like to always utilize the language whenever I do my introductions. I believe in the reclamation of our language, of our culture, and our spirituality. Even when I got my native name, Whitehorse, I was like, dang it, I wanted a cool name like Blazing Eagle or Bird on a Buffalo's Back. But little did I know, when it came to the name Whitehorse, it was a very powerful name. In our culture, in our ways, horses are strong. They're half thunderbirds. Because even when it comes to the story of our horse dance and how it came to be, a man wanted to honor these horses when they first came. And I'm shortening the story. But this man went up onto like a mountain to go and fast for 4 days. To go and find out what he could do for these horses, for these mistatims, these big dogs. And he went up there. And on the fourth day, he didn't have no vision or anything. So he ended up coming back down, halfway down that hill. And he got tired, so he wanted to take 5. And he ended up having his vision there. And on there, he got told what he needed to do for the horse dance. He got told the songs that needed to be done. He had a vision of exactly what needed to be done. And he brought that back down to his people, and that's when he was told, horses are half thunderbirds, and they're very hard workers. So it went off my traits of who I am as a Nakwe Eguamina Api Tau Nehiao Na Peo. So half Soto, half Cree man is myself. But it went off the traits of who I am. And apparently I'm a hard worker. Samaganisan. So I'm a police officer. Eguamina. So I'm a warrior as well. But I serve with the Canadian Armed Forces as well. I'm a constable full-time. I'm a husband. I'm a father. And I also do this public speaking on my days off. So all these jobs that I do is because the Creator has blessed me with that work ethic. Wapa stim as Whitehorse. So I also like to acknowledge that the land that I stand on right now is Treaty 6 territory, homeland of the Nehiao, of the Nakaway, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and the Stoney people, and homeland of the Métis. But when I say that land acknowledgement, it means a lot more to me. And what I communicate when I go around Turtle Island is, what are treaties? Treaties are nation-to-nation agreements. Because the Crown viewed our people as nations, for only nations enter into treaties. So First Nations people should not be penalized for acting in good faith when it comes to honoring the spirit and intent of these treaties. Because what our people saw, what our Gateyak saw, was who we're educating right now. Because who I'm speaking to right now are all educators for you, for all of you in the crowd right now. What they foresaw is that our young people, our Oskayak, would be respected and protected. Right now, my daughter is in high school right now in grade 10. And I always told her growing up, it's going to be cool to be First Nations. It's going to be cool to be Indigenous in the future. And that's what we're seeing right now. And now she said, Dad, you were right. Now when we're sharing our culture, now when there's power dancing at school, people are just cheering now. And even me, as I go around to high schools to share the gift that the Creator gave me, which is speaking to our young people, I talk about not drinking as it is not our culture. I talk about living a clean life, living a clean and sober life. I hear roars of applause from our young people because that's what they want. So when I remind myself about these land acknowledgements, I think about our asotamatamon, our treaties. And it's in the language, our culture. Asotamatamon, no matter the inconvenience, you must honor what was said because it was swore on that oswagan. I don't like to say pipe because that just reminds me of Popeye the Sailor Man and Looney Tunes and how they tease their people. But their oswa, to breathe in values, it was swore over that oswagan. So we value our side and we honor our side. Sadly and unfortunately, that hasn't been the bargain on our side. We sadly have been impoverished from these treaties. But our old people, they see what's happening right now. It's so cool to be Indigenous that people are pretending to be us now. So I got asked to come and present virtually here. And I believe in showing a piece of my heart when it comes to these kind of presentations. Because that's what I believe will help move us forward. And my goal is, whenever I come speak to people, young people in high schools, is, hey, if John Langan, if Wapos Tim can do it, he grew up just like me. I can do it too. Because I'm trying to pave the way forward so our young people that are behind me, they can be like, yes, this is a Anun Tegeo. This is our warrior here. He's going to lead the way. Because I was always taught in the military. I've been doing it for 19 years now. You know, how to be a good follower. That way you know what your followers want in the future when you're placed into that position of being a leader. I still don't see myself as a leader. But that's where I find myself now. So when I was very young, I lost my father to suicide. He wanted to hurt himself 3 times in front of me and my brothers. I'm the youngest of 5 brothers. And unfortunately, I also lost another brother to addictions, to crystal meth. And 2 of my oldest brothers, they're gone now. Well, no, correction, one of my brothers is gone now from crystal meth, but I'm still almost losing another one to crystal meth as well. And one's in jail for armed robbery as well. But me and my other brother, Hank, we're doing good. But my father wanted to commit suicide in front of us for some reason. But on the 4th go, he finally did it. But when I shared that piece of my heart with you, it's because I'm passionate about where I see our young people going. My mom endured severe domestic abuse growing up, to the point where my father broke my mother's jaw. And she had to get it wired shut. And one of my first memories is waking up and going to a woman's shelter. I was just in my underwear, but my mom gathered us right away and covered us in a sheet because we had to leave. And one of my first memories is opening up the lower cupboards and smelling cornflakes. Not Kellogg's, but that Smart Choice and that no-name smell of stale cornflakes. So as I carried on with my life, my mom tried to find a dad for us. And she ended up finding my dad, or my stepfather, but I don't like saying that word because my dad was man enough to raise 5 boys that weren't his. And he was a welder, he was a logger, he was a social worker. But the main common theme between everything in my life was residential schools. And little did I know what I was going through was intergenerational residential school trauma. And that's what I communicate now. I don't like to say I'm a 60 scoop survivor, but the cutoff was 1993, 1992, and unfortunately I was placed in foster care as well. We were living on a res at the time, and I'll share this story here because that's how I believe points are kind of put across. But everybody on the reserve back then had nicknames. So the one person that looked after the couple that looked after us were our uncle and auntie, but their nicknames were Porridge and Sugar, because Porridge looked like the Quaker man on a bag of oats that we all know. And then Sugar was obviously the complement of Porridge. But it was really violent when we were there because my mom was going out to look for a dad for us. And Porridge and Sugar decided to drink as they were looking after us. And I'll clean this story up a little bit, but it got really violent to the point where Porridge took a knife and cut off Sugar's clothing. And my brother, my oldest brother, didn't know what to do, so he ended up taking us. And it was the end of winter. And we only had rubber boots and we didn't have any winter jackets or anything like that. But we're going door to door asking for food, and we ended up going to Kamsack, which is just a town that was not very far. You see a lot of hitchhikers that go into Kamsack. But from there, the RCMP was called. We were taken into foster care. They didn't bother reaching out to my koko, the sodo for grandmother. They reached out to other people, and we ended up getting put into foster care, and we all got separated as well because my mom had to address her alcohol problem, and she did, and she got us back shortly thereafter. But my mother was a day school survivor, my father, residential school, my dad, residential school. Even my one brother that I shared that I lost to crystal meth, he went to one of the last ones in Labret. It closed in 1995. Shortly thereafter, there was a lot of trauma that I went through. I got abducted a few times as a little boy. One time he ran away from my cuckoo, the one that I was talking about. We were living in Yorkton, Saskatchewan. We went to the mall and the Super Nintendo just came out. And we ended up going to Zellers when it was still open. And they had little kiosks where you could play the game, but me and my brother weren't tall enough. And we went inside the shopping cart of this pervert that was well known in that area. His name was Dirty Harry. He had thick Buddy Holly glasses. And he was well known in Yorkton as a pervert. And he would take young boys and I'll just let you put the pieces back together for what happened after that with those young people. But he had a station wagon where all the doors were like welded shut except for his. Then he spray painted the back windows. So we were inside of his shopping cart, me and my brother, and we wandered away. Probably about a half an hour, 45-minute walk from where we ran away from. And Harry, the pervert, said, "Hey, you guys, I have this at my house, puppies, everything that you've seen in those stay alert, stay safe videos growing up." We did the opposite of that, me and my brother. But we almost got abducted by him. He took us in his shopping cart. We're about to go outside. But there's a bunch of RCMP officers that are all around the Parkland Mall. Because they were looking for him because he had warrants for other stuff that he was doing to children. Then my brother came down the chip aisle, and I remember it so vividly. Yet I was only about 5 years old at the time. And he said, "Let go of my brothers." And he was taken into custody. And I remember getting a ride back in the RCMP cruiser. And I was just like, am I in trouble? But my mom was so terrified of what happened. And she was so happy to see us. Because obviously we needed a dad in our life. So my dad came into my life later and shortly after that. But as you can see, I kind of have my little sawed-off shotgun braid right now. But we moved to a small town called Oxbow. Me and my family experienced a lot of racism. And I'm not afraid to say that neither whenever I go around. And we moved to a small little town called Oxbow, Saskatchewan. And we're all getting our photos done that day. I was in grade 1. And everybody was lining up to get their photos done. And there's a low stool. Life Touch was there, same photographer that we're all used to, with the nice background in the gym. We're all lining up, and my mom made my hair into 2 nice braids, little leather ties at the end. And I sat down on that stool, and I was ready to get my picture done. And the photographer, I don't know if he was having a bad day that day, but as soon as he saw my hair and he heard my voice, he just said, "Boys aren't supposed to have hair like that. Tuck those braids into the back of your collar." Me, I trusted adults at this point in my life. Yes, I would have girls and boys tease my hair, but I knew the way I was raised with my culture and my spirituality that this was what our people did. But that day, I tucked my braids into my collar. In my back of my mind, though, because this is one story that I'm sharing with you guys about stuff about my hair, I knew the pictures would go back to my mother. And shortly after, my parents got mad. They got mad and stormed into the school and demanded retakes, wanted to know who the photographer was. But I always saw my parents getting mad at people all the time. Shortly thereafter, I was on my way to a gas station / VHS rental store, old school Netflix, as I tell the young people as I speak to them. But on the middle of it, there was 4 snooker tables and there was arcade games. All amongst the side, there was Street Fighter 2, there was Dig Dug, Galaga, Pac-Man, Ghosts and Goblins. But I was at the back of this place and my dad was welding at the time at Saskark Industries. And I found $20 on the ground. It was underneath some gravel and I was so happy. I was like, I'm going to get this all in quarters and I'm going to play Street Fighter 2. So I go inside and I put the $20 down. And there's a guy behind the counter. He had a big gut. And he had a muscle shirt on and curly hair, short. But then I said, "Can I get this all in quarters, please?" He said, "Where'd you steal this from?" And he looked at me with a little smirk. "I don't serve your kind here." And I panicked. And I grabbed that $20. I go back to my dad who worked about 4 blocks away. And I said, "Dad, this is what happened." My dad took me into his truck, said, "Come with me, my boy." We go there, comes out, "Come with me." Holds my hand as we walk inside. We go back into the same VHS gas station. And he grabs that man behind the counter and said, "If I was to cut you and if I was to cut myself, what color would our blood be?" That man says, "Red." He said, "Exactly. Don't speak to my son like that ever again." We leave, and my dad holds my hand. He said, "My boy, I'm not always going to be there for you. There's going to be ignorant people in your life. You have to learn to speak up for yourself. It's going to be hard for you because of the color of our skin. You have to work twice as hard in this life in order to make it. The Creator gave you a mind to think. Use it." Shortly thereafter, I decided to cut my hair because I wanted to be like everybody else. Then my dad would say, "Do you feel any less Indian in your heart, my boy?" And I said, "No." He said, "That's all that matters." I share these stories with people just because that's the gift that I believe that the Creator gave me, was to share to share stories. And with it, I also teach language, culture, spirituality. That's where I believe to have an identity as a First Nations, as an Indigenous person, to have that identity of who you are as a person and where you fit in this world. I help young people identify their self-worth of who they are. I help young people with the language, with the culture as well. And I wrote a book as well. Sometimes I forget that I wrote it. It's Isko Jis Tipiska. A spark in the dark. Because that's where everything starts. It starts with your mind. It starts with exactly what my dad said. To use your mind that the Creator gave you. And that's what I do. I may not be the smartest person when it comes to these things, but I have this drive. I have this feeling that I want young people to hear this message. Even in ceremony, in matutsan, and in our language, that's sweat lodge for all my Nich Yahweh wind speakers. I don't like to say sweat lodge because it just sounds like a agayase, more like an English term. Mato means to cry. Matutsan, a place to go and cry. So that's where I got guidance in my life. Even since I was a little baby, I was inside of our big lodge, of our thirst dance, also known as a sun dance or a rain dance. And I was very young. All these old ladies gathered because they're very powerful. And they said, this young man, they held me as I was a newborn. And they said, he's going to help a lot of young people in the future. And we asked that you guide this young baby. So now here I am, because of the ones before me and those treaties that I speak about. It's reverberated through Oswagan for them in their prayers. And in that Masanayan, in that book, that's what I teach. I share my story of what I've been through in life and where I am right now. Yes, I may be a constable. Yes, I may be a lieutenant. But those are just jobs that I do to feed my children. This is the gift that I believe that the Creator gave me, was to speak. To speak to people. To speak from my heart. I didn't rehearse this. I just spoke from my heart, and I'm thinking about the people in the crowd, the principals, the educators. What other great job is that, to be able to teach our next generation? Teachers believed in my book so much that they made lesson plans for grade 9 to 12 because they believed in my book so much. They said, John, people need to hear about this book and to learn about it. So that motivated me to keep going. Now my book is being taught in over 30 different First Nations. Because in my book I speak about my life, but I also use a cultural manual at the end to kind of teach a young person, this is how you present yourself at ceremony. This is how you approach an old person at ceremony. This is the stuff you need to get, to giveaways. These are all the ceremonies that we have, and I teach about them. Because in my mind, I'm like, how are we going to reach the young people if we can't bring them to ceremony, or if they weren't raised that way? So that's what I do. I think of my life like a miigwan, like an eagle feather. In order to make it in this life, you have to balance both sides. You have Western teachings, which we need that. Then you have our other side, which is our culture and our spirituality. In order to make it in this life, you have to learn how to balance both. So that's what I'm trying to do in this life that I have, because we're not here for a long time. I was always told we're only here as short as a Pascualmostus's breath. As short as a buffalo's breath. That's how long we're here, like a snort. So the time that I'm here, I believe Momotaima, the Creator, the Father of Fathers, wants me to speak to young people. Because with that book, I named it after my son. That's his name, Ishkuchis. Little fire, little spark. Because that's what it starts with, just a little spark. I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. I know you guys have a big agenda when it comes to this conference. But I hope with the words that I have shared with you today from my heart, that I can possibly come to your school. Actually, no. I know that I'll be coming to your school. I know that I'll be coming to your conferences to help your young people. Because this is a gift that I want to share with young people. Because with my workshops that I do, I help them discover their self-worth. I help them discover what their purpose is and the gift that the Creator gave them. I also do anti-suicide training. I also do anti-bullying training. Those are the things that I think are needed through my lived experiences of what I went through and still currently going through. Because as one general told me when I was deployed overseas, he said, John, remember one thing, because your public speaking is going to take you such a long way in life. Tell this to people. People will always remember how you made them feel. Always. And I'm sure all of you in the crowd can agree with that. No matter what stage you are in life, there's also bullies when you're an adult, even when you're a kadeyak, even when you're young. Throughout what stages in life, because hurt people hurt people. But I also like to leave people with positive messages too. I also teach them to ask Creator for things that they want in life. And I'll share with you one story. I wrote down that I wanted to learn how to make sisig, how to make rattle. And another one, I was very specific. I said, I want to learn how to make a turtle rattle. And I read that list every day of 300 things I wanted from the Creator. But I'm sharing with you 2 little things. A sergeant with the police came to me one day and he said, John, do you know anybody who's looking for a turtle? And I was like a pet turtle? And he's like, no, like an empty turtle shell. I was cleaning up my parents' house and I'm wondering if you know anybody that wants like an empty turtle shell. And I was like, well, me? Really? He's like, yeah. And then I said, yeah. I got to give you some, just stay, I got to give you some tobacco in order for that transaction. He's like, perfect, I'll bring it in the shoebox today. And then I learned how to make a turtle rattle because I always wanted one. You know, and now I have that. But I can tell you out of those 300 things, I can cross off about 90 or so things so far. And I wrote it 1.5 years ago. But anyways, Nananskamun. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope some words that I shared with you ignited that spark in your mind, that iskuchis, that little fire, that little spark. Hi, nananskamun. Moistes wapimtin. I hope that we can meet one day in person. Moises.
Everywhere we bridge to war. Rise and resonate, the world awaits. Your voice, your spark, it illuminates. Rise and resonate.